one of the craziest, nuttiest draft weekends that we've ever seen continues to churn headlines. I was on with Paul Allen, our good friend, voice of the Vikings. He's got a weekday show on KFAN. And we were talking about what the NFL could, might, would do about the Falcons admitting that defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich ended up with Shedeur Sanders' phone number on his iPad. His iPad was open, and his son saw the open iPad, wrote down the number with the intent of prank calling Shedeur Sanders, and obviously did. And I was thinking maybe they were just going to let it go because they have responsibility for how Ulbrich got that number. We're going to talk about that in a second because that's taken kind of a subtle turn.
Yeah.
Where it's become something where the NFL is sprinkling a little BS over the media and in turn the fans. But I thought they would just kind of let it go because the NFL had a spoon in this stew that resulted in Sanders being prank called. And after I made my case that, I believe at the end of the day they're just going to let this go, boom, it hits. They're not just letting it go. The Falcons get fined $250,000. Ulbrich gets fined $100,000. And when you consider relative worth of the franchise and relative worth of Ulbrich, the percentages are off.
Definitely.
Like, it's a tiny little skinny needle pinprick on the buttocks of the Falcons. $100,000 is going to hurt Jeff Ulbrich. That is going to leave a mark. That is a major penalty for an assistant coach. And I know they make millions. I don't know how much he makes. What do you think he makes? What do you think he makes?
Well, he's making. I would think he's making a few million. I would think that is a decent.
$100,000 is a lot to give up if you're making a few million.
It is, right. No, there's no question. There's no doubt about that. That leaves a mark. It might leave a mark on his son Jack's. In fact, actually, this is what it might leave a mark on. And I'm joking when I say that, but I hear you. Yeah, that's a steep price. No question about that. And I'm with you, Mike, and I was like, are they going to do something here, or are they going to admit fault in the fact that they sent it to too many people? We know that. That's a fact.
Oh, no, they didn't.
Yeah, right.
It was just sent to a confidential list, and if they chose to give it to him, that was the bullshit that the NFL was pushing yesterday.
Yes, I know.
To one of their reporters who's on the payroll, who has no choice when in Rome, and I don't want to name names, but after you do this 25 years, you know where they go. You know who will take whatever they give them and use it and not ask questions, and becomes very useful in that regard, and doesn't make waves and doesn't push back, and basically operates as external PR. They've got internal de facto PR who gets paychecks signed by Roger Goodell, literally, and external reporters who are very compliant and will go along to get along. And when I saw this pop up yesterday, because their position is, and the report was, this goes out on a memo marked confidential to a small group of people, and what the team does with it after that is up to them. So basically, if you decide to give it to your defensive coordinator, and really, why would the Falcons decide to give defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich the phone number of a guy that they aren't going to draft unless they're trolling us? They're not going to draft a quarterback again. I don't care in what round. Shedeur Sanders was not joining what would have literally become a three-ring circus in Atlanta with Michael Penix, Kirk Cousins, and Shedeur Sanders. And you can say, well, yeah, the Browns did it, but the Browns is the Browns.
Yeah, they're a little
different. The Falcons aren't quite to that level yet. So, I mean, just common sense tells us there's no effing way they're giving Jeff Ulbrich Shedeur Sanders' phone number.
I wouldn't think so, right? That's not normal standard draft protocol, right? Where like a defensive coordinator, have you ever seen a defensive coordinator on the phone with the recently drafted quarterback, like in the draft room? No. It's going to be the GM, and then it's going to be the head coach. And then if the head coach is the quarterback coach, offensive coordinator, okay, it ends there. It goes to the owner. But maybe okay, now the head coach is the defensive guy. Hey, we draft you. Now it might go to the offensive coordinator or quarterback coach real quick. But you're right. There's no way and there's no business to be had there between Jeff Ulbrich and the quarterback in that situation. So, yeah, it's hard to buy that. And on top of that, Mike, like you said earlier, I wasn't sure if they were going to accept a little fault here and, like you said, just go, man, we got to figure a better way here. That was an incidental mistake, right? A kid being dumb, thinking he's funny with his friends and all of that. We've all been there and done that in that moment, right? This obviously crosses a line that's pretty harsh for sure. But so I wasn't sure either. And then to see the fine come down, I was like, wow. And I did like you did. I saw Ulbrich and I went, wow, he got 100,000. Wow, that's steep for him. I mean, that's nothing for the Falcons. But on the same token, I think in the conversation here, and as we're seeing, and we're going to discuss more, this was rampant, and we can't let this continue to happen. That's the biggest thing. This is wrong to human beings. It was badly, horribly wrong to Shedeur Sanders and his family there, to where, yeah, this has to be like we're drawing a line in the concrete this time, and you can't cross it, okay? That's the way it goes, and I think that's where the NFL had to make a statement here to protect players of the future and tell teams to be on notice a little bit more with this information.
But this is one of Roger Goodell's areas where he would need improvement. And it shows he learned nothing from the Saints Bountygate debacle, because it ultimately was a debacle for the league office, because Roger Goodell had full power over the punishment that would be meted out against the players who were involved in the Bountygate scandal. And they went to court. There was an issue. There was a union thing. And ultimately, he decided to exercise his judge, jury, and executioner power by delegating it to former Commissioner Paul Tagliabue to let him be the one who heard the appeal. And Tagliabue wrote a very biting, but not slap in the face. But if you, like, as you read, it's like, man, he's really sending a message to the guy that took his job. Basically, you don't change culture by finding one guilty party and making an example out of them. You acknowledge we've got an issue here, and everybody is on notice going forward that we're going to take a step back. We're going to look at how we got here. We're going to make some changes. And moving forward, once we make those changes, if you do this, there will be hell to pay. But it's more like a scared straight scenario where Goodell wants to find that one guilty party and hammer them. And then everybody else is like, oh, shit. Oh, we better not do that again. We better not do that thing that we've been doing again. Now, here, it's impossible to know whether or not any of the other prank calls trace back to, and I don't think they do. And I want to delve into that further before we get too far down that rabbit hole.
Okay.
Here's Jeff Ulbrich from yesterday. He was made available to reporters, and here's what he had to say about the punishment that was levied against both the Falcons and him directly.
I'd like to publicly apologize to Shedeur and the Sanders family for what occurred. Second of all, I want to publicly apologize to Mr. Blank, Terry Fontenot, Raheem Morris, and the entire Falcons organization. My actions of not protecting confidential data were inexcusable. My son's actions were absolutely inexcusable. The Sanders family, Shedeur, and Coach Sanders were amazingly gracious, more gracious than they needed to be in a moment like this.
Look, from Ulbrich's perspective, and I thought it was kind of funny that he says publicly that he wants to publicly apologize. Like, that's one of those words you don't need to put in the statement, whoever wrote the statement. You don't need to say twice, I want to publicly apologize. It's happening publicly. Anyway, that's just a little pet peeve. I don't know why he's hanging his head in shame for having his iPad in his home. You know, like, our phones are open from time to time. It's your house, for crying out loud.
I know, right.
Jeff Ulbrich did nothing wrong here. I don't like this unless he knows he got away with one and he was in on it, and we'll never know. Because, as I said the other day, I get the feeling that maybe this was the most innocuous explanation possible, and it seems a little convenient. in church lady voice. Isn't that convenient? It just feels a little convenient how they explained it. But still, if we accept their version is true, he didn't do anything wrong. He had his iPad in his home, and it was open, and a member of his household decided to misappropriate that information. The blame is entirely on the guy's adult son.
Yeah, well, it is. But, he's going, wait, that adult son was under my roof, and you know how football coaches are. And this is a guy that's a stand-up human being, Jeff Ulbrich. I mean, he is. I've been around him enough to know this is a no-nonsense, says it like it is, respect people, respect others. He's that type of guy. So I think it hurts him at his core. I mean, I think you can kind of see that right there, that he's hurt at his core. You could see it in his eyes. And, of course, it's his livelihood and his job. And, yes, it's like, hey, I just got fired from one job, and now I'm going to another job, and I'm trying to impress them and make them feel good. And one of the first things we've done that's on the radar for the organization is we've cost the owner $250,000 in the new job. And I haven't done anything to contribute to positive yet. So that's where he feels it. And, yes, you're right in the fact that you would think it's not really his fault. He's in his house and all that, but he's not going to make those type of excuses. That's not what he is. And at the end of the day, I still think he's looking at it going, it was confidential. I had the iPad open. And even though it's my home, I shouldn't do that either, right? And so he's going to deal with it and take it on the chin, and I think he handled that situation pretty damn well yesterday.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.